Oh, we're ready.
We're ready. Very good.
We're ready, and I have my vest on.
Okay, I didn't get a vest.
Ooh, we have an extra one. Should we? Yeah, let's pause and get one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Want a vest.
yeah. Welcome to the Hall Monitors podcast, a podcast brought to you by the City of DeSoto's communications team, recorded right here at City Hall. Back in the day, it was the hall monitors that kept an eye on the halls of this old school building. Now we're keeping an eye on the big projects, decisions, and stories shaping our city. So grab your hall pass and let's take a walk, not a run, through DeSoto's past, present, and future. This is the Hall Monitors podcast. Let's get to class. Is that the bell?
That was the bell.
I'm Libby Johnson, the Communications and Outreach Coordinator, and I'm joined by City Administrator Mike Brungardt,
Mike Brungardt.
special
That's
guest.
right. Well, thanks for having me. I was wondering when I was going to get the invitation to be the subject of a Hall Monitor podcast, and the day has come.
Yeah, so can you do a little bit of an introduction on what you do? Because
what I do?
you do a lot
I'm
of
not
things.
prepared to answer any questions about my roles or responsibilities, really. If we could
How
just avoid
about
that.
how long have you worked for the city?
Okay, yeah. So I started for the city in 2000 as the city engineer. And I was the city engineer until 2016 when I was promoted to the city administrator position. So I've been the city administrator since then. The easiest way to explain it is sort of the CEO of the city's operations, overseeing day-to-day operations and ensuring that the policy directives of the city council are carried out in terms of budget administration and day-to-day activities of the city.
So you're basically the principal.
If you want to put it in an education context, yeah.
We know we like to do
That's
that.
good.
A fun fact about you that I wanted to mention is that you are a Swiftie. I love that fact about
I'm a
you.
big Swiftie. Yeah.
So then you're familiar with her many eras, her Eras tour.
Yeah, I've heard of an Eras tour.
Well, I don't know if you've noticed, but we like to do some sleuthing, get some intel from people that are close to you.
Okay, yeah.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about your love story era?
You talked to my wife about this?
She said you're quite a romantic.
Well, I try to hide that.
Okay. The real question is, how did you two meet back in high school?
We met in Mrs. Giles' algebra class at Lawrence High School. And yeah, what happened was I convinced her to skip class one afternoon to go shopping or something. And the next day we came back in and she got called back to the principal's office. She got detention for 6 weeks or something. And I inexplicably had no consequences at all. They didn't catch me. Our desks were literally right next to one another. So that's how our relationship started.
Hall Monitor would not approve of that.
No, that's right. That's right.
No.
Jill brought that up, that it was romantic that she got detention and I didn't. This is probably not the story she was thinking about then.
All right. Well, I think that's enough Taylor Swift talk. Back to what we're here for. To start off, can you explain what a CIP is?
Well, in the simplest terms, a capital improvements program is a long-term budgeting document to identify what types of larger public improvements we want to implement over a certain time frame and how we're going to pay for those. And so comparing it to a usual household budget or a municipal budget that's sort of an annual thing we go through each year and look at it, we try to take a longer view of, a multi-year approach to implementing larger projects. So usually in a capital improvements program, you'll have projects that take multiple years to plan and design and implement, and you'll have to fund those efforts over many years. So usually it's things in the hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars that you just couldn't work into an annual budget. So it's water line replacements, it's roadway enhancements or reconstructions and things like that. So we try to overhaul, take a fresh look about every 5 years or so. But then each year you do need to adjust, as any budget does. You need to adjust timelines and funding expectations as well. The really important part of that is to take a longer view because a lot of these bigger projects takes multiple years to implement. And more importantly, we need outside funding sources to implement many of these projects. Applying for a grant, getting that program through whatever it's a state or federal or regional process. It's important to have this plan looking ahead 5 or maybe even 10 years so that you can pursue those outside funding sources.
So what is the biggest difference between CIP and city projects, or how would you describe that
they're all
difference.
kind of city projects. These are all projects that are either infrastructure or programs or quality of life, parks and rec, things that the city is directly in charge of. So the biggest difference between what you would include in an annual budget and something you need to really program, mostly it's scale.
Mm-hmm.
It's how much it's going to cost and how long it's going to take. Annual budgets end at the end of each year. With the CIP, that fund bridges years. And so the main difference is that it's
Yeah,
the scale of the endeavor.
that makes sense. You talked about some of the different projects that it includes. Let's talk about some examples of previous projects, just to kind of give an idea.
Okay, yeah.
One of them, the
S-
construction.
We're going through it right now,
Yeah,
aren't we?
yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it's in the CIP. It
Mm-hmm.
still is. The City Hall remodel is something that we've been thinking about for 3 or 4 years already. There's a lot thought goes into planning that. And really about a year and a half ago, it initiated the architectural design and started those discussions with the city council about how much it would cost. And so now we're in the middle of construction. And we hope to be in the new office spaces here by the end of the year. Other projects that we've done in the past that are complete, Ottawa Street, north of 82nd Street, the reconstruction of that down to Riverfest Park, that was over $1 million project there. We'd known for a while that we wanted to provide better pedestrian access from downtown down to the park area. We'd known that the railroad crossing wasn't the best, that there were some drainage issues that needed to be fixed. And so the process took a couple years to implement that. And of course, planning and design and permitting is a year of that. And then
Mm-hmm.
construction's about another year. The other big ones we have going on right now, just in terms of magnitude, are the biggest ever for the city. The water treatment plant expansion, this wastewater treatment plant expansion, and some water infrastructure extensions, as well as sewer. About $100 million represented there. Those are being fully funded by Panasonic and are a direct result of Panasonic, but won't just serve Panasonic. There's additional capacity built in, both the water and the sewer projects, and those were done on a very accelerated time frame and really helped out by the upfront funding of those. Normally, if the city had to fund something like that, we would have at least a year of discussions about water and sewer rates and about the city's debt financing structure and the debt service levels. There would be very hard and very lengthy decision points to make before we even started. We were able to completely bypass that whole process with Panasonic's commitment in our community to fully fund all those. So we were able to hit the ground running. The water treatment facility has been up and running for about a month now. The sewer treatment, we're within a couple of months of bringing that online too. That's that was about 18 months. And usually $100 million worth of improvements takes a lot longer to implement than that.
Yeah.
Had Panasonic never happened and we would have had to expand the sewer treatment plant. We would have had to modernize the water treatment facility. We would have had to have done raw water diversion improvements. Over time, it would have taken 20 years, to program all those things out. That would have been something that would have been in the capital improvement plan for 20 years, likely.
Yeah.
There was also the roadway improvements, Lexington Avenue, south of K10, all the way out to Evening Star Road. KDOT actually initiated that. That's about $80 million worth of public improvements. Johnson County chipped in some funding as well. We had in our capital improvement program before then about $2 million to improve that roadway. Wasn't anything near the scope and scale of what was done. So we contributed about $2 million to that project of capital improvement money. Of course, what ended up happening was far in excess of anything that we had contemplated. We were thinking a pavement enhancement and some guardrail improvements on the 2-lane
Yeah.
road that was there before. So that was kind of programmed into the capital improvement program as well.
How often is it updated, and why are we looking at it right now?
Yeah, so it's good to completely overhaul a plan like this every 5
Mhm.
years or so. You don't have to. There's no set rule on when you have to overhaul it. You could look at these annual reviews as a complete overhaul, and some cities do. But, the time felt right to take a completely new, fresh look at the CIP for all the reasons that we know. We're taking a fresh look at the comprehensive land use plan of the city. We're taking a fresh look at the zoning and planning efforts, with future growth at hand, with Southwest Growth Area Plan, the city's strategic plan, the strategic guidance of the council. We've overhauled that within the last year. So it just only made sense to do a capital improvement overhaul as well.
How do these projects get on the roster of how do they get chosen and how do they make the cut?
Yeah, so every city's a little different in how they do that. What we've done in the past is just start off with some engagement of not only staff and elected officials, but the community in general. And we just ask just give us a laundry list, give us a wish list of what you would like to see. So the things that come to the top of mind for us, community center, that ranks very highly on public opinion surveys, even before we started the CIP overhaul. It's been a focus of those discussions. And so it was an obvious candidate for inclusion and, consideration of a long-term plan. Another thing are traffic enhancements, traffic improvements. We've just done a corridor study on 83rd Street coming through town. And as it turns into Lexington Avenue, we know traffic will increase on that. We know that's a demand that's going to happen in the future. So that's another obvious one. But then what you often do get are quality of life items, trails, parks amenities, soccer fields, playgrounds, swimming pools, those sorts of things are often what comes out of those. Then the next tier under that would be what you might get from department heads, specifically from the utility departments, or, if you have a fire department or if you have a police department, they will identify a need for a new facility or for enhancements to their existing facilities. From an infrastructure standpoint, we have people who know the condition of the systems we have in place, and we know that we're going to have to do some enhancements there just from a maintenance standpoint. And so that's kind of the next level. And really, those are the ones we've identified several of them as mandatory.
Yeah.
We absolutely must invest from a holistic standpoint in this infrastructure that we have in the ground. We have hundreds of miles of water and sewer pipe that we know need maintained and replaced over time. Those are the sort of mandatory projects that you start to build the pyramid with, and you look at your funding level, then you go to the next step and you just see how much your dollar can stretch and how much you can do.
Yeah, I'm like, oh, you're just telling me to come up with all these things that I want in the community, but then you're like, okay, I guess I need the road to hold up, and those things that aren't as fun. But what's not fun is some big infrastructure issue that.
Well, so right now we're redoing City Hall, and they're working on the water line service, and we've been at City Hall without water all morning.
Yeah.
And you don't realize how important it is till you don't have it.
So it is interesting. And it is interesting, too, to see the difference in prices. And as you were saying, you have the bottom of the pyramid. And then is that when the pricing kind of goes into play as well?
Well, pricing is always in play for everything. And, the landscape on costs of public improvements is dramatic, has been for a long time. Stuff just costs a lot more than it used to. It's expensive to maintain infrastructure.
Well, I mean, that was one of the things I took away from the starting here. I was like, oh my gosh, things cost a lot more than you'd think they would. Add a couple zeros to the end, and that's closer to the number than you thought it would be.
Yeah. It's probably the most difficult part of compiling a capital. It's easy to identify what we need. It's easy to identify what we want. It's easy to kind of prioritize those things. It's hard to fund things, but it's even harder to have a really accurate knowledge about what they're actually going to cost when you go to implement them. Because some of these are 2 or 3 years out. Right now, actually this month, we're in this process where we've gotten the wish list, we've gotten the laundry list, we've compiled that list. We kind of have an idea about what all those things are going to cost. And right now what we're doing is we're seeking input from the public about where their priorities are in terms of general areas of investment, but also specific projects that are on the list. That's up on our website now. So we're going to take that input back to the council and then prioritize that list. At the same time, we're trying to decide how much money we think we're going to have to implement some of these. So it kind of that relates to the budget and revenue projections going forward, and its impact on property tax, other services that we can provide or want to provide.
Yep.
So that's the other piece of it. And so it's sort of all a puzzle right now. I think we have all the puzzle pieces on the table right now, and we'll be putting them together here in the next several months.
How do partners or grants factor in to these decisions?
Yeah, well, very heavily. Most big infrastructure projects have multiple funding sources. It's very rare that you just issue bonds or have one funding source. So what we like to do is look to the programs that we know about, grants. Some of those are annual ongoing programs. So there's funding programs through the county. There's funding programs through the Regional Planning Authority, Mid-America Regional Council. There's state programs through Department of Transportation and Department of Health and Environment. And then there's federal program grants that come out every couple of years or so. There's also, the private sector. If a particular capital improvement would benefit an adjacent property in terms of future economic development, we like to engage with that discussion as well and be able to capitalize on common goals. We have a goal of we need to improve this road. And maybe the adjacent property owners would like it improved for their own benefit or for the benefit of future economic development. So there's local partners involved as well.
Yeah. So it's like you have the list. You can kind of identify, okay, here are some potential partners. Because you don't want to pick something and then be like, oh, crap, who's going to pay for this?
Well, and it's sort of part of the reason why things take so long.
Yeah.
I talked about the Panasonic example where, 24 months ago, we had no idea we were going to do $100 million worth of stuff. Well, now it's done. That 2 years, that never happens. Normally, it would take 2 years to figure out, to get the stakeholders involved, to get outside funding sources identified, to have these discussions about rates and impacts and all this before you even start really into the actual construction of the project. And so when general public hears that the city's thinking about improving 83rd Street, yeah, we are. We have been for a couple years now, but it's still at least a couple years out because we have to have the rough plan of what we want to do, the rough idea how much it's going to cost. Then we have to engage with these outside funding sources. So it's really, that's the time commitment to it. But it's really the reason why it's so important to do long-range planning, really in all aspects of municipal government. You have to long-range plan for land use, for staffing requirements. You have to have a long-range holistic plan about utility asset management, pipes in the ground and pumps and stuff, roadway improvements. For all these reasons, it's important to look long-term because these pipelines, they take a while. So within our current CIP, we have several projects that are of this long-term variety. We call them kind of pipeline projects, actually. The 83rd Street improvements, it's more than $40 million if we fully improve 83rd Street all the way through town. That'll happen in phases, but it's a pipeline. So we do need to spend some money planning for that, writing for grants, seeking outside funding sources. We have to take some time to do that in the next couple of years. So that money's budgeted. We're not going to budget $40 million in 5 years for it, but we do have to get started. Same thing with the community center. It's a big investment. It's in the tens of millions of dollars. We've got to spend some money now, design, maybe some land acquisition, potentially some preliminary design. So you have to get these things in the pipeline.
Yeah, definitely. What role does the community play in giving feedback on the CIP list and what they want? Right. So we're in the phase of the CIP planning process that we're asking for specific community input on a number of different aspects. If you go to the city's website, there's a 2025 CIP page there. You'll see the projects that we've identified. There's a really nice interactive map. You can see where they are and generally what the scope of the projects will be. And then there's a survey that asks for the community's opinion on a certain category of those. I've explained a little bit before about how some of the projects related to maintenance and upkeep of infrastructure are kind of mandatory. So we're not really asking about those, but we are asking about this next level of projects that might be prioritized by the community or might not be. So it's things like park improvements and trails, and the community center is on there, things like that. We'll be compiling those results and then taking them back to the council for further consideration. Yeah, I took a peek at the list, and there's some pretty cool ones on there. I'm like, if I could pick, I would just choose all of them. Yeah, that's the point. We wish we could do all of them. Right, which is why people need to weigh in a little bit. That's right. Is there one project that you're personally excited to see in the next few years? I tell you, the new water and sewer plants, they're out of the public eye. You don't see them driving by anywhere, but they're pretty impressive when you take a tour, and I can't wait to be able to show people around the new water treatment facility, just absolute state-of-the-art facility there. I'm just so happy and pleased for our water plant operators. They've been operating the Sunflower Water Treatment Facility for more than 20 years, and that facility was built originally in the 1940s and upgraded in the 70s, and it was old technology, and they've done a great job at operating that over the years. But the new state-of-the-art, I'm excited for that, for those, for our operators there. And the water tower, too. If you've driven by Panasonic or even by K10, you can see this concrete column that rises up a couple hundred feet, and we're currently waiting on the steel crew to come and weld up the actual tank on top of that. So
That'll be a very visible, probably the most visible public improvement project you could ever have is a big 2 million gallon water tank sticking up there in the air. So
Yeah.
that'll be exciting to see as well.
So we'd like to ask everybody what they're doing next, where they're off to, because we're the hall monitors. So we have to know everything.
Oh, what am I doing
Yeah, where are you headed off
right
to?
now? I'm going to go back to my office and close the door and turn off the lights so people think I'm not there, and I'm going to get some work done.
All right. Honestly, it works pretty well because I'll look over
Does.
and I'm like, oh, I don't know where he's at.
It's tricky. No, you know the thing. So my office has a motion-sensitive light switch. And if I'm behind my monitors too long, the lights will go off on me. So that's how I know when to get up and get some steps in. And
That's a good indication.
yeah, it's better than a tracker watch. All right. Nice
You're-
job, Libby. You didn't need to be nervous at all.
Oh, gosh, thank you.
You're making me nervous, but
Seriously, thank you for tuning in. And if you made it this far, congrats.
yeah, thanks for
'Cause
sticking with us.
There's been some fun stuff. You
We'll
know.
see how the editing comes out. I do have some editorial oversight, do I not? No?
Oh.
Okay. Running this through a high-pass filter or what? Do I get a wah-wah pedal?
I don't think
So I
your
want
hair
you-
looks bad.
Well, I mean, that's what you think. But reality is not always what you think. So you're going to tell me when you start, right? There's none of this, clipping these initial little unguarded moments into the Hall Monitor podcast as a way to try to personalize me. Yeah, we do need help.
I did
guess.
hate having those on my face.
What did you have on your face? Badges? Badges?
We have no badges.
And so now I'm afraid to post anything on TikTok for fear that these 25,000 followers will see what I'm up to and think they're not really interested in that. They want to see a plasma gun.
He's a loser now.
Yeah.
Well,
Just a little boring. I wouldn't say loser. It's a little rough.
Sorry.
Less exciting than the plasma gun. They're wolves at the door. As usual.
kind of, golly, what the heck just happened?
You're making me nervous, Libby.